What's up, guys? Neil Orfield here, and I'm going to show you how I'll be setting up my fantasy cruncher for the Sunday NFC Championship game between the Eagles and the 49ers. I'll be setting up here for the largest field GPP on DraftKings. While you're coming in, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. All right, the first thing I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to rearrange my columns so I can see what I want to see in the middle of my screen. So I've got a quick view saved. Now in the middle of my screen, I can see ownership projections, my projection, my exposure caps, and then how much I get of players once I have run a crunch. That's what I like to see in the middle of my screen. Next, I'm going to sort by projection. And I'm going to remove every player who has a projection of 0. I'm just going to click, drag, remove all these players. Not sure what's going on with the Niners running back situation. Eli Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey both kind of banged up all week. I'm thinking there's a chance I'm going to need to add Tyrion Davis-Price back into my player pool, or I don't know who it would be. Somebody from these Niners running backs might come back into the player pool at some point. But for now, I'm going to remove all the players with a projection of 0. Next, I'm going to go into, I'm going to click on this captain tab here, and I'm going to set an exposure cap on captains. I'm going to use 20% again. That's what I've been using all year in these videos. That's typically what I do use. Occasionally, I will stray from that in some contests. I don't know that I will in this one, particularly on DraftKings. I do like to spread out my captain ownership sometimes because of the multiplier on the captain spot. So I think exposure cap of 20% makes sense for me. I'm going to go into the advanced tab now. And I'll be working in 2 tabs here, the general and the groups tab. Starting in the general tab, my settings are, okay, unique players per lineup. If I'm setting up for 150, I'm going to leave this at 1. So my lineups can be just one player apart from each other. If I were to make 40 or fewer lineups, I might recommend changing this to 2 players for the sake of diversifying your lineup set. Salary cap, not going to set a minimum. I will set a maximum. Again, this is just for the purpose of avoiding the most duplicated lineups. If my lineup is good enough and lucky enough to win the contest, I don't want to be splitting with 1,000 other people. I'd like to be splitting with, ideally, nobody, but 10 or fewer is kind of the goal for me. I still want to make significant money when I win. So I want to make lineups that are not duplicated a ton. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to leave a little money on the table. So for this one, I'm going to leave 1,000 on the table. So I'm setting a salary cap for my teams at 49,000 instead of the 50,000 allowed by DraftKings. Offensive players versus defense, the default is set to a max of 2 players. I'm going to change this to 5. So I could theoretically have 5 players from one team against the defense of the opposing team. I think that makes sense in this matchup. 2 great defensive teams. It is possible that one of these offenses really sputters in this game, in which case maybe you do want, 5 Eagles players against just the Niners defense. Maybe that Niners defense has a pick 6, or the reverse of that also. Want to allow for that. Not going to have a ton of those types of lineups anyway, but I'm going to allow for it in my lineup set. Exposure cap, I'm going to leave at 100%. I already changed it to 20% in the captain spot specifically, but otherwise, if I get to 100% of some players, maybe I'd be okay with that. Typically, I cut it back a little bit, but I'll leave that exposure cap at 100%. Randomness, I'm going to set to 30%. Not a magic number. If you want more control over your lineups, I would set this number lower. You could even use no randomness at all if you want complete control over how your lineups come out. I like to include a little randomness in my process. So I'm going to set this at 30%. Minimum projection included in calculation, the default is set to 3. I'm going to leave it at 3. If there's a player who I want to have in my player pool who projects for fewer than 3 fantasy points, I'm just going to manually boost their projection to make sure it's above 3, so they are in my potential player pool. And then players from each team max, default is 5. I'm going to leave it at 5 so I can have 5 players from one team against just 1 player from the opposing team. All right, now I'm going to move to the groups tab. You know what I did immediately the first time I won 6 figures in a DFS contest? I converted my trial membership to Stokastic, which was awesome at the time, to a full annual subscription. That's because I knew these were the best tools in the industry. That was 2019, and they've gotten even better since then. Well, good news. You can get access to these same tools without winning 6 figures first with a great offer from BetMGM. You can get 2 months of Stokastic Plus Platinum when you sign up, deposit, and bet at least $10. That's every tool on the site for every sport other than Fantasy Cruncher, a $240 value. All you need to do is click the link in the description of this video, follow the steps, and deposit $10 or more, and place a bet of $10 or more on whatever you want. And when that bet settles, MGM will hit you up with how to get your subscription to Stokastic. You don't even need to win the bet. On top of all of that, you also get bet insurance on your first bet up to $1,000. That means if you win the bet, you win the bet, you get your money. If you lose the bet, you still get your money back in site credits. It's a great deal from BetMGM and a long trial subscription to the best DFS tools out there. The legal age for gambling in most states is 21 plus, and if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Reminder, make sure you use the link or use promo code PLATINUMSUB or we won't be able to track you. And as usual, my groups are going to center around the quarterbacks. Of course, you can make more groups than I do here. And these are the only groups that I typically set. There are other groups you can make as well. But the ones that I find to be most important revolve around the quarterbacks. First, I'm going to set a group with Jalen Hurts at captain, make him a key player. And then I'm going to sort by position. I'm going to add all of these Eagles receivers to the secondary group. I should say Eagles pass catchers. The running backs for the Eagles, a little bit iffy. Not all that involved in the passing game, but I am going to include them in the group. All right, and for Jalen Hurts, he is good enough running quarterback that I'm not going to require any pass catchers from the Eagles, even when I have Hurts in the captain spot there. It's kind of a rare thing. There's only a handful of quarterbacks who I don't require at least one pass catcher when I've got the quarterback in the captain spot, but Hurts is one of those. So I'm going to click this only apply plus minus adjustments button. Man, can't speak this morning. Okay, so now this no longer applies. So the rule, if any key player used, then use at least one player from this group. That rule doesn't apply because I clicked only apply plus minus adjustment. So the only thing that this group is going to do is say, if I have Hurts in the captain spot, use these plus minus adjustments that I give here. So I am going to give some plus minus adjustments to these receivers. Generally, if I have Hurts in the captain spot more often than not, I think I still want at least one pass catcher, even though he is a great running quarterback. And then for the running backs, I think I'm just going to give small boost. That's all I'm doing in this group. I'm saying if I have Jalen Hurts a captain, give some boost to his pass catchers, make it more likely that I get at least one of his pass catchers into those lineups. But again, Jalen Hurts rushing for 2 touchdowns would not shock anybody. It is possible, certainly, for Hurts to be optimal captain without any receivers. So I didn't require any. I'm just giving boost to the pass catchers. All right. Next, I'm going to move on to Brock Purdy. Group. So I'm going to find Brock Purdy at captain, make him my key player. And then again, add all of these Niners receivers now to the secondary group. And obviously, including the running backs for the Niners. And Brock Purdy, very different than Jalen Hurts. I believe Brock Purdy has rushed for less than 1 yard per carry. Last I checked, I guess I haven't checked since the last game, but not much of a runner. If you have Brock Purdy at captain, you're definitely going to want at least one receiver in the secondary group. I think if you are making 40 or fewer lineups, I might actually just change this to at least 2 players from this group and leave it at that. Just require two receivers from the Niners in groups that have Brock Purdy at captain. Don't give boosts or anything. But I don't think that's what I'm going to do in a 150 set. I am going to leave this at 1 player and then also give these boosts. So potentially I could have some lineups that have just 1 pass catcher from the Niners with Brock Purdy at captain. He has rushed for a couple touchdowns this year, so certainly in his range of outcomes, he gets that kind of boost, even if he doesn't get a ton of yards. These running backs and give smaller boost too. Only requiring 1 pass catcher when I've got Brock Purdy at captain, giving boost to make it more likely that I get to multiple. All right, and then I'm only going to make 1 more group here, and that's going to be a Brock Purdy flex group. Really don't think it's necessary with Hurts because I think Hurts is definitely viable in the flex spot without any receivers. Don't even need to give any boosts or anything. To be optimal in the flex in this low scoring game, maybe Hurts only needs 12, 14 points, in which case just 1 rushing touchdown might be enough. And that's certainly viable for him, or, 60 rushing yards, whatever it would be. There are certainly plenty of ways for Hurts to be optimal in the flex without bringing along any pass catchers. So, not even giving any boost to the pass catchers with Hurts in the flex. Purdy, on the other hand, I'm going to want at least one pass catcher. So, I'm going to find Purdy in the flex, make him my key player. And then again, add all of these Niners pass catchers. And now, because I've got Purdy in the flex, I can also add the pass catchers in the captain spot. All right. And that's all I'm going to do for this group. All I'm saying is if I've got Brock Purdy in the flex, I want at least one pass catcher from the Niners somewhere else in the lineup. I'm not going to give any boost or anything like that. So those are the only groups I'm setting here. Obviously, we could set other groups, but those are the only correlations I find to be the most important. Now I'm going to create some lineups and then see if the correlations are working how I want them to. And then, of course, I can always adjust if they aren't. All right, so I'm going to crunch out 150 lineups. All right, so we see right away we've got Jalen Hurts in the captain with multiple pass catchers. That looks good. I happy with this lineup for sure. Even though I didn't require any pass catchers, I did give boosts, and that got me to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith in this first lineup. Looks good. Second lineup, Brock Purdy at captain, just one pass catcher in Brandon Ayuk. Don't love that quite as much, but again, Brock Purdy certainly has the upside to run for a touchdown. You know, he can maybe he runs a little bit more in a playoff game if they really need him to. So I think I'm fine with that. Hurts in the flex with Goddard. Purdy with Debo and Ayuk. Looks good. So far, looking through these all look good. Man, this one is a full onslaught Philly lineup. Hurts a captain with Brown, Smith, Goddard, and Watkins. Don't mind that. Purdy at captain with Debo, Ayuk, and Jennings. That looks good also. Yeah, I'm happy with the way these lineups are looking. Don't think I need to make any adjustments to my groups. Here we've got one with Hurts in the flex without any pass catchers from the Eagles. Again, if I get some of those lineups, don't mind that at all. Don't want to have it in like a third of my lineups because typically, obviously, there is positive correlation with Hertz and his pass catchers, but it's a little bit unique to run him out there without any pass catchers, I think. So I don't mind having it in some lineups, certainly viable. All right. In general, I think I'm happy with the way these lineups are looking. Then the other thing I do is I'm going to check my exposures, and I'm going to just go position by position up here, looking at exposures for each player, deciding if I think I'm getting approximately how much I want. So you can see here, I'm getting to nearly 100% Jalen Hurts, 79% in the flex, plus another 20% in the captain spot. That's a whole lot of Hurts that I'm getting in my lineups. Obviously, he projects really well, running quarterback. Obviously, they're oftentimes you are going to want them in your lineup. So I don't mind getting that much. I am only getting to, let's see, 29 plus. All right, so I'm getting to 49% Brock Purdy. That's I'm getting quite a bit there as well. So maybe that's okay. Running back, only getting to 22% Christian McCaffrey. Now that's the downside of how much Hurts I'm getting. Is it's hard to get both Hurts and McCaffrey in your lineup, particularly when you are setting a salary cap like I am. So maybe I want a little bit more of an even distribution there. So maybe I'll give a little bit of a boost to McCaffrey, see if that changes things. Not getting a much Miles Sanders at all. I think I'd like more than 11%. So then I would maybe just give a little bit of a boost there. And this part of my process, there's no science to it. It's all just art here. I'm just trying to figure out how much I want of different players. I'm giving little boosts to their projections to get closer to how much exposure I actually want to different players. So Eli Mitchell, I see, I'm only getting 1% with a projection of 6.7. I just think what's it going to take to get him into more of my lineups? And, I think if I boost him all the way up to 8 fantasy points, maybe I'll get closer to 10%. Somewhere closer to the field is probably where I want to be on Eli Mitchell. Gainwell had a big game last week, mostly in garbage time. Going to be owned, I think. I mean, we've got him at 9% ownership. Maybe that's about right. I'll give him a little boost. I think I do want him in my player pool in a 150 set. Don't know exactly how much I want, but I'll give him a boost to 7. And then you can see Boston Scott, Kyle Juszczyk, not currently in my player pool because I have projections fewer than 3 fantasy points. So I'm going to bring Boston Scott up to, we'll say, 5 fantasy points, and Juszczyk just up to, 3.4 maybe. And we'll see where we go from there. At this point, it's all just trial and error. That's all I'm doing, trial and error until I get exposure levels that I like for every different player. All right, AJ Brown, 39% looks good. Debo, 43. Smith getting to 57% Ayuk seems a bit rich, but I'm going to leave it for now. Juwan Jennings getting to 15%. I think I'm honestly okay with all of these levels for the most part. Zach Pascal, I'm going to bring up, get him into the player pool. Ray McLeod, probably not getting in there unless there's garbage time. I don't know. In the playoffs, there's not typically a ton of garbage time. Teams don't really want to give up very early, but maybe I'll include Ray in there. Tight ends getting to a whole lot of Dallas Goedert. Yeah, I'm definitely going to want more than 0.7% George Kittle. I should sort by salary here. So we've got Kittle actually projected worse than Goddard. I'm going to give him a pretty big boost here. Get him into the player pool. Fair amount of George Kittle. He does, he's been playing well with Brock Purdy at quarterback. They seem to have a little bit of a connection. And then these backup tight ends, nobody that I love here. 150 set, I probably do want, a couple shares here and there. Just going to give these guys projections of 3 and see what happens. There's some chance that I end up getting a ton of these guys with a projection of 3, but I'm just going to, again, it's trial and error at this point. I'm going to leave these kickers where they are. I'm going to leave the Eagles exactly where they are. The 49ers defense only getting a 5%. I'm going to try and get a little bit more there. All right. So now I'll crunch it out again. You know what I did immediately the first time I won 6 figures in a DFS contest? I converted my trial membership to Stokastic, which was Awesemo at the time, to a full annual subscription. That's because I knew these were the best tools in the industry. That was 2019, and they've gotten even better since then. Well, good news. You can get access to these same tools without winning 6 figures first with a great offer from BetMGM. You can get 2 months of Stokastic Plus Platinum when you sign up, deposit, and bet at least $10. That's every tool on the site for every sport other than Fantasy Cruncher, a $240 value. All you need to do is click the link in the description of this video, follow the steps, and deposit $10 or more and place a bet of $10 or more on whatever you want. And when that bet settles, MGM will hit you up with how to get your subscription to Stokastic. You don't even need to win the bet. On top of all of that, you also get bet insurance on your first bet up to $1,000. That means if you win the bet, you get your money. If you lose the bet, you still get your money back in site credits. It's a great deal from BetMGM and a long trial subscription to the best DFS tools out there. The legal age for gambling in most states is 21 plus, and if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Reminder, make sure you use the link or use promo code PLATINUMSUB or we won't be able to track you. All right, so now you can see I got a lot less of the defenses. That's probably for the best. I don't think I want a ton of the defenses in this game. Probably more than what I'm getting here, though. So I'm going to give a little boost right away. Give them both projections of 7.6. As you can see, every projection is relative. So even though I didn't change the defense's projections the last round, I still got a ton less because I got more of the other players who I'd given projection boost to. So it is all relative. If I leave these kickers exactly where they are, there's a good chance I'm actually going to get less than what I'm getting right now. I wouldn't mind getting a little bit less of Jake Elliott. Robbie Gould, 14%. Maybe I want a little bit. I'll give him a tiny boost to try and get to, I want to make sure I'm still getting some. And then the tight ends. Yeah, see, here's what happened. These guys I gave them projections of 3. I'm still getting I'm getting to over 10% of each of them. I probably don't want that, to be honest. I probably want a couple of each of them. So what I could do here, and what I often end up doing, is going back into advanced options. I'm going to change this to minimum projection included in calculation to 2 fantasy points. And that way I can lower these guys' projections and still have them in my player pool. Maybe still want a little bit more Kittle. Might need to lower these guys as well. So I'm going to bring Ray down to 2.8, Pascal down to 3. So I have them higher projected than the tight ends because they are a little bit more expensive. Kind of want an even distribution of these lower end guys. Quez Watkins getting to 10%. Might get more now that I've lowered the other projections. Juwan Jennings, just 2%. I think I probably want a little bit more than that of wide receiver 3. They're 5.2. Ayuk, I am getting to a ton. I could lower that. Maybe I'll leave him where he is and then just give slight bigger boost to these other receivers. All right, use check. I'm getting to 1.3%. Honestly, not sure I want much more than that. I lowered some of the other lower end guys, so maybe I'll get more now. Boston Scott, not currently in the player pool. Maybe bring him up a little. Kenneth Gainwell, bring him up a little. Eli Mitchell, bring him up a little. All right, and then I'll crunch it out again. All right, 80% Hurts, only 23% Purdy. I might want more Purdy than that, so maybe I'd give him a slight projection boost. All right, now getting to a little bit of these running backs. Maybe I want a little bit more, so I'd give a little bit more of a projection boost. And this is probably going to be, this will be my last crunch here. I'm not going to do this over and over. Sometimes I do this, 30, 40 times on a given slate. Not going to do that here, just kind of showing you the beginning steps of my process. Still getting 10% Ray McLeod. Maybe I'll leave him where he is, but give boost to other players who need it. And he should come down, I would think. All right, so yeah, these are looking a little bit more reasonable. 6% for the tight ends. All right, and I'll crunch one more time, and this is going to be my final crunch. I'm going to leave it at this, whatever I get. But this is the general process. I just adjust the projections slightly until I get to exposure caps that I like. Typically looking at the Stokastic single game tool gives me a good idea of how much I want of different players. For here, I'm just eyeballing it. But that is something that can help guide you in figuring out how much you want of different players. Looks like I am getting closer to what I think I will want in terms of exposures for all these different players. Yeah, I'm getting to, just a smattering of these guys who don't project all that well. Don't really want a ton of those guys. It's unlikely that more than one of them has a big game. You could also, that's another group you could say. You could say at most one of Ray McLeod, Zach Pascal, Jack Stoll, Tyler Kroft, Ross Dwelly, Grant Calcaterra, et cetera, Kyle Juszczyk, those kinds of players who are pretty unlikely to hit, but there's a chance that one of these guys has a touchdown and is somebody you need. You could set a group just saying at most one of those players, or you could say exactly one of those players. Not something that I typically do, but something you could consider doing. Anyway, that is going to do it for this video, showing you my general process. The lineups are starting to look the way I want them to, exposure levels the way I want them to look. So getting happy with how this lineup set is looking. Hope you can find some success using this or a similar process. Good luck.